This segment of DoD TV's Wildlife Obsession is brought to you by Scent Crusher. Scent off, game on.
This week on Wildlife Obsession, it's mid-December, there's snow on the ground, all the deer are headed to the food source. Here we go.
Well, with John's luck that he had on Sunday, I was feeling pretty good. I'm gonna hit back after it Monday.
The Lone G3 buck is 5.5 years old. We got a northwest wind, and if it didn't happen today, it would probably be next year before I'd have a chance at him again.
We had ice, we had snow, we had all the above. What a mixture. Just what we were after to drive those deer to the food source.
There's a pretty good deer behind him. Looks like a shooter, maybe. Oh, it's definitely a shooter.
Stay tuned. You won't want to miss this week's show of Wildlife Obsession.
Well, with John's luck that he had on Sunday, I was feeling pretty good. I'm gonna hit back after it Monday. It's an east-southeast wind. We're supposed to get 1 to 3 inches of snow starting sometime after 2 o'clock. I don't think they're gonna get snow down here. I think it's gonna be more rain and sleet and such, but we're following up an ice storm that already came in a few days ago. We're gonna be over standing corn, exactly where my wife killed her buck earlier this year. And I just can't wait to get in here. I've been dying to get in here, seeing how many deer we have and seeing what's all out there. So we're gonna get after it. All right, locked and loaded. We just got in the blind. It's pretty awesome, It takes a lot of work building these blinds. I know when we built this one, it took a lot of weekends, but man, are they worth it. When the weather gets cold and you got inclement weather coming in, it's way worth it being in one of these blinds and having the heat on. Where I was hunting was basically a destination food source. It's like 9-acre, corn food plot, but we mowed 2 biologic strips into it. It's the Big 9. He never stopped. He went right into the corn. He disappeared. You cannot see him in that corn. Hey, John, I heard something right here. My Big 9-pointer. Oh, I can't believe it. First night out. John had good luck last night. So I said, you know what? I'm going to try a food source. Different farm, different food source. Back in September, my wife and my son and I were all in this blind, and that deer comes right marching down this strip. He has shed velvet hanging off of him, his horns. It was awesome. Great encounter. My son was, getting excited. He actually had a lot of deer out in here, and he was getting excited. To have that same deer the first night in here come right marching almost the same exact trail, but then he cut into the corn. I didn't think I was gonna get him. He cut right in that corn. I could not find him, and if it got dark on us, we would have to leave him out in the cornfield and walk out. Oh my gosh, my Big 9. Well, we let it get dark. I throw my encore on my shoulder, and we're gonna head out and go get this big guy. He's a nice 9-pointer. It started sleeting, kind of raining, sleeting. That's not good when you're trying to find a blood trail. Hey, there he is right there. There he is right there. Yeah. Well, here he is. It's my Big 9-pointer. Definitely one on my hit list. If I had to pick one deer left that I knew was on the farm, it would be this buck. And the last time I seen him, though, was with my wife, right before, it was sometime mid-September, when we took my wife and my son out, and we got in the shooting blind before I went on a trip, and we just sat together and spent the evening, and we had lots of does out in front of us, and here he comes. And he was shedding velvet. He had velvet hanging off of him, and it was just a cool scene. He comes right in. Same blind my wife killed her buck out of earlier this year. I got so many photos of the deer. It's just awesome to know a deer, to have him, on a piece of property that you think he's, using as his homestead, and then harvest that deer. And, obviously it was extra special having Wyatt, in the blind that night with us, and, You know, it's just something you just, as a sportsman and as a hunter, you just can't explain. It's just one of those awesome things when it actually all comes together, and especially on the very first day.
What I thought was ingenious on this particular hunt with Dave was the way that he structured his food plot. He was hunting over a huge destination feed field, but he in turn had mowed some shooting lanes. And in those shooting lanes, he then put in the biologic maximum. And this was right after, or the remnants of an ice storm were still kind of hanging on or lingering on. He slipped in there. The weather obviously had to have something to do with it. But when you've got a standing food source like corn, and then you've got biologic maximum in those shooting lanes, I just don't think it gets any better than that. I thought it was rather ingenious on their part to plant it that way early on. And I think David made reference to the fact that the last time they saw that deer was mid-September when he was out there with his son and with Amy. And here it is, December the 4th. So, you know, some substantial amount of time went by, but it was all about food source. That one's an absolute no-brainer. Good job to Dave Reisner.
Not every day you get to go hold a 203. Can't wait to see this deer. It's always good to see blood on the tailgate.
We're going to see the big buck killer. Since 1997, Mark and I have been up here and have yet to see a gross 200-inch deer on the ground. Well, David Lindsey's got one.
Hey, Dad. How you doing, mister? Good. I don't know that there's anything more rewarding than passing a deer one year and seeing that benefit someone else in seasons to come. I remember when I first got wildlife eye of this guy when he was 2.5 years old, tight rack, decently long tines. Always wondered what he was going to turn into. Man, at 3.5, he blew. Velvet footage of him that year told us that he was a real giant and potentially a giant in the making. That fall, Terry had a fantastic encounter with the long G3.
Those are the kind of deer that we've elected to pass. He's 3.5. He's going to be a beautiful 4-year-old. He'll pick up another 15 or 20 inches.
By age 4, he was bigger and better. Probably 170 to 180 class deer. I had an encounter with this buck late that fall. Had a gun in my hand. We tried to stick to 5.5s and older, and boy, it was sure tempting, but I let him walk. It didn't take long into the velvet scouting to see that my decision might have paid off. This buck had blown, and I mean blown into a true giant, potentially a 200 class deer. Now he's 5.5 years old. Here's the story of the long G3.
Heading in this late season, the lone G3 buck is 5.5 years old. We got a northwest wind, and if it didn't happen today, it would probably be next year before I'd have a chance at him again.
It's 18 degrees. We just got 4 inches of snow this last couple of days. We been here just a few minutes, and we already got 3 deer in the field. That's why I'm talking low. Got a bunch of small bucks in here. We're hoping Mr. Big comes out tonight. We'll put the hammer down on him. He just come out of the corn. That's him. I didn't shoot him that far. Missed him. Oh man, reload. I'm trying, man. All the times I have a hard time reloading this thing. Stay there, baby, one more minute. Gotta make this shot count, little John. Not done. Just video. He dropped. He's dead. He's dead, buddy. He's down. No, he didn't. He just run. He's dropped. He's on the ground. I'm looking at him. Oh man. Oh man, I can't believe that. What a turn of events that happened. I cannot believe I missed that deer the first time, but we got him now. I guess I was a little nervous when he come out, and I pulled off of him right to the last. When I pulled the trigger, I knew I did right when I done it, but he went out there about 151 yards and Willis Thompson Center. It nailed him right there.
Oh, it was a great moment after that happened. I couldn't wait to share it with the whole family.
Me and little John, golly, that's all we've been talking about all year. Ever since little John come up here and started filming, everything we talked about was around this Lone G3 buck. That's the reason he's called the Lone G3 right there. Found this shed January the 18th last year. It was the first shed I picked up on the farm. And ever since then, I've had him in my sights. It's a deer of a lifetime, no doubt. Just thankful I had the opportunity to harvest him.
As you get into late December, it's so important to have a strategy in plan back in May. And that comes down to what winds am I going to anticipate I'm going to have in December during the late part of the season? Am I going to be hunting with a bow? Am I going to be hunting with a gun? If it's with a gun, your plan is a little bit easier. And I like to set up for 150, 200-yard shot and in. I like to plant a destination feed field somewhere upwind of my position, and I like to put my downwind side where literally none of the deer come from. You've got to have a plan that plays on a variety of different wind directions, because the latter part of the season, we all want those norths and we want those northwests, but you don't get them every year. Make sure you've got enough feed fields that you can go in regardless of where the wind direction's out of and what weather condition Mother Nature throws your way.
This segment of DoD TV's Wildlife Obsession is brought to you by PSC's Carbon Air. Experience performance.
Well, the month of December came in roaring like a lion. It's always an adventure to try and harvest a deer with the archery tackle, particularly after the firearm seasons have closed. We had ice, we had snow, we had all the above. What a mixture. Just what we were after to drive those deer to the food source.
Well, here it is. We're still hunting in December. We've got snow on the ground. It's warmed up a little bit. We've got a little bit of a thaw coming on. All that ice and everything that we had hanging on the trees and all the fences and what have you has melted a little bit. You know, I've always wanted to shoot a deer in the snow, so maybe tonight we'll kill us a doe. And away we go. How about that lingo? I should have been a rapper. I've always wanted to kill a deer in the snow. Maybe tonight it'll be a doe, and away we go. Well, I don't know about our choice this evening. We'll see. This is kind of an afterthought. We didn't intend on going here, but we got late. We sat in the timber pretty much most of the day. Saw a lot of deer in their feet. They never really bedded. They actually were up and feeding from 11 o'clock until we left. We elected to come back to a food source. We got biologic right here in front of us, and we got beans just to the east of us. And then there's some standing corn over there a little bit further, but we're hoping to see them pour out of this timber and onto this biologic. You can see where they've been following it. There's a lot of fresh tracks in here. So we'll see what the evening brings.
High pressure was upon us, temperatures warmed up, they could finally chop through that ice and get down to that biologic maximum. It seemed like this was going to be an evening that would shape up just absolutely phenomenally.
There's a little fawn right there, doe fawn. There's more does coming onto the field here. There's a pretty good deer behind him, looks like a shooter maybe. There's a little fawn right there, doe fawn. Does coming onto the field here. There's a pretty good deer behind him. Looks like a shooter, maybe. Oh, it's definitely a shooter. Standing there in the timber. Keep our fingers crossed, that's a pretty good deer.
he came in, he was right here in the biologic maximum. These deer are pawing through it to get to the big roots on these things. One of these does was right here. She kind of caught me getting ready to draw and cleared the field. They all ran off, and then he just stood there like a statue. So I went ahead and took the shot, and I felt like it was pretty good. I felt like I hit him good. But when he ran off, the arrow looked like it was back, so he was quartering to a little bit, and I didn't realize that. So we'll keep our fingers crossed. Whoa. What a beautiful evening, very calm. Kind of a tranquil evening tonight. We're gonna go back to the cabin and take a look at the hit. I'm not happy. I'm not 100% satisfied with where my arrow placement was, but I saw the arrow hanging out the other side. It got a complete pass through, and I'm using a 2-inch rage broadhead. So I feel pretty good about it, actually.
The blood was sprayed all over the ground. We found his first bed, which was right there, real close to where we'd last seen him. We peeked up over the rise, and there he laid. What's that right there? I couldn't help but drag him out on this beautiful, beautiful, sunshiny morning. Here it's December the 19th. I've always wanted to harvest a deer in the snow, and we've got still snow cover on the ground here. It's been extremely cold the last few days, and it's really pushed these deer onto a food source. I had a biologic maximum food plot in front of us right there. The does were kind of pawing on the ground to get to those big bulbs, and they were eating them, and he had pushed or nudged a few does out onto the field, and it just worked out perfect. He got within bow range, and the PSE obviously did its job. The Rage Broadhead, I can't say enough about those broadheads. They truly are remarkable. It's the difference between recovery and possibly not recovering an animal. The cutting diameter is 2 inches, and if you put that arrow in the right spot, they just don't go far. This one I was a little bit concerned about because he was quartering to just a little bit, and as luck would have it, we made the right call. We backed out last night. We came and watched the video footage and said, hey, it was 20 degrees, let's just leave him till morning, and that's what we did. And there he laid right in about the second or third bed that he got to. So it worked out really good. Couldn't be happier. This is one I will long cherish and long remember. Said a little prayer to somebody upstairs. My wife lost her sister, Betty. I prayed to her a little bit yesterday. So she made it come true.
When you're talking mid-December and you got snow and ice in the ground, food source is really the answer, and that really is pretty obvious in this particular hunt. Now, what I will say is when you're hunting over a biologic maximum field like that, you know, early season, you got the big brassica leaves and plants and stem, and they just absolutely annihilate that stuff once you go through 2 or 3 frosts and those starches turn to sugar. Well, when you may think that the food source is gone, underneath that bed of snow are those big, huge bulbs, the roots from those brassicas. So a lot of times you'll think that there's not much food left when in reality there's a great deal of food there. And one thing that you have to be very careful of is that late season is not too different from early season in the fact that the deer are bedded very, very close. So you got to be very, very quiet. You got to be cautious because you can blow the whole hunt before you ever get started. But late season, once again, December the 18th, little skiff of snow, which is something I think as a hunter is really the ultimate. Trying to harvest a deer in the snow late season like that is it's just the optimum.